I kept hearing, do this as a live, do this as a live. And I was like, no, I'm just going to make a video and upload it. I'm just going to make a video and upload it. I have tried to record this video multiple times and my phone keeps saying storage full. I've deleted a million things off my phone and I'm still trying to record it. And yeah, it just kept saying storage full. So maybe I actually need to reset the phone, but still, I'm taking it as a universal sign that I'm meant to deliver this in a live stream. So I have just come back from Glastonbury. I got back yesterday evening, and if you've been on my Instagram, then you perhaps you know I was there. And it was just deeply, deeply transformative. And I've been to Glastonbury 4 times in the last 5 years, almost every year, apart from one, and it is just the most incredible, potent place and just activates something so, so deep within us. It's like whatever you need when you go there is what you're gonna get, and so it's really hard to have clear, defined expectations around going there and what it is that you're going to experience, but it's always deeply transformative and a real place where we go to die and to be reborn. So I'm very much feeling that energy, and I had a bit of an experience on my way back. So I had come from Ireland, crossed the border like on the ferry, and got to Wales, drove to Glastonbury, spent time there, and then I went back the same way. And crossing the border at Wales was honestly crazy, and I'm still kind of like, what was that experience? Even though I can see why it happened and the sort of bigger picture around it, but it's feeding into these threads that I'm kind of picking up on collectively. So this this is what I'm going to be talking about today. So I approached the ferry port, and there is a sort of security person there, and I just got a bad vibe straight away. And it's so weird because when I was in Glastonbury, I kept getting this image when I was up the tour of like almost like a police car. And so it's like I would get it sort of almost beamed into my inner vision, and I was like, okay, that's strange. Like, what does this mean? And often I find when symbols like that come to us, it's because instead of pushing them away, it's like we're actually being invited to merge with that symbolism. And it is just another part of our consciousness. So it's just about connecting with that part of us and bringing it into our field. So when I had seen that image within my mind, I was like, okay, hey, hearts on fire, long time no speak. When I had, seen that symbolism, I was like, okay, I'm just gonna merge with it. And when I did, it was like I felt this really deep, something really deep integrated within me, and I stopped seeing the image anymore. So I thought it was really interesting when I then had this incident with border security. So as I was approaching, I just got this really bad vibe from this guy, and I just had a feeling it wasn't going to be a really smooth sailing experience. And he started questioning me, and bear in mind, going between Ireland and the UK is a common travel area. You are allowed to come and go as you please if you are a British or Irish citizen. He checked my ID. He was asking me a million questions. Where was I going? What was I doing? All of this stuff. And kept sort of saying, are you okay? Are you okay? And like looking at me like really deep in the eyes. And I was just like, what the like, yeah, I'm okay. Like, what is your issue? And so we then he then sort of waved me on to go to the next bit where I was stopped again and asked if they could search my vehicle. And I was like, okay, sure. And I'm a seasoned ferry crosser at this point. I've done that crossing multiple times, so it's not like I don't know what the usual sort of protocols are around that. And so, you know, they asked me to sort of exit my vehicle, and usually they ask you if you have any cigarettes, alcohol, or gas, like anything flammable on you. And the woman who was sort of, you know, searching my van or sort of having a look in it, she was just asking me the very sort of usual questions. And then the guy who was at the start came over, so he's walked all the way over from his station to continue questioning me. And I was just looking at him like, are you for real? Like, you have convinced yourself that I have something illegal on me, or that I am up to something illegitimate. Like, I could just tell. And so he started asking me, you know, am I in possession of any hashish? And even that, right? Why don't you just say cannabis? Or it was just weird, like his language. It was like he was putting on this weird accent when he was talking to me. It was so bizarre on so many levels. And I was like, is this for real? Like, is this guy actually doing this? Started asking me if I was in possession of any other, you know, illicit substances. And again, he's using all these sort of slang words to describe this. And it was just one of those experiences where, you know, I did feel under threat because of the way that he was, his whole body language towards me. It was very threatening, really, like, you know, just staring at me. Every little movement I made, he was like, you know, on me, like watching me. And he at one point actually asked me if I was carrying guns. And at that point, I was just like, you have got to be having me on. Like, is this actually a joke? Like, I'm a young looking woman, like traveling on my own. Like, do I really look like someone that's just going to be, you know, in possession of like firearms? And also, if I was, and if he genuinely suspected me of being in possession of something like that, he should have, you know, there's different protocols to follow. Like, I don't think you're meant to just speak to somebody at the side of the, you know, the sort of, what do you call it? The, you know, the ferry entrance bit. Like, he should have taken me aside if he genuinely thought that I was in possession of something like that. It was really bizarre. But also my experiences in Glastonbury had all been around sovereignty, and a lot of it was to do with really stepping into my own masculine energy. So of course, then what am I faced with at this sort of threshold, at this very, very literal threshold, this crossing? I'm faced with this very inverted masculine archetype, and somebody who is trying to, you know, almost extract something from me energetically. That's what it felt like. And you know, I definitely sensed that there was something else sort of working through him as well. It was just all very, very unpleasant. But it kind of made me think as well about the UK at the moment. And, you know, I know I have people kind of tuning in from different places, so this may or may not be as relative to where you are in the world, but right now there is so much stuff in the UK, and I also know it's happening in America too. This very like anti-migrant rhetoric, and all these sort of discussions around people, you know, who should be in what country, borders, you know, putting sort of caps on, you know, people being able to come into the country, and, you know, all of this and that. And to me, I'm not interested in the political side of it, because I think the narratives are always being controlled. They're always being steered in a certain direction. So it doesn't actually matter to me, you know, who's going where or what. You know, I think in an ideal world, we wouldn't have borders in the way that we do anyway. But I think it's really being amped up at the moment in terms of, you know, if certain people look a certain way or present a certain way or are a certain religion, there's narratives that are being steered around, you know, those people not having the rights to have access to enter certain countries, right? Mostly the UK, America, and I see Kino Joshua, you said same in, is that a South African flag? I'm not sure. But yeah, so I think it's really important that we're mindful that we don't get swept up in those narratives, because it does seem to be something that is quite pervasive at the moment, even within communities that we might perceive to be spiritual. I've very much noticed it in Ireland as well, and I think it's probably from certain types of wounding. You know, every country has at one point been colonized. That's just the damn truth. When you go through history, everywhere in the world has at some point experienced some form of colonization. So everybody has that wounding, no matter how recent it has been. Of course, it's been more recent for certain groups of people, but that wounding is a collective wound of like invasion, and so it can be triggered on all of these different levels. And I see it a lot in Ireland with people who maybe, you know, espouse themselves to be spiritual people, but they're sort of really rallying and falling prey, in my opinion, to these techniques of divide and conquer, in this sort of, we need to protect our land, we need to protect our people, but they're, in my opinion, missing the point. If any sort of narrative like that is coming through the mainstream, it's controlled and it's serving a wider agenda, it's serving a wider purpose, it's not just organic, you know? And so I think it's really important that if we get triggered around those kind of buzz topics, like immigration, the economy, you know, all these things we're fed on a day-to-day basis in the news, and, you know, whatever it is, all this rubbish that we're fed, if we have major triggers around them, that shows that we've got work to do. And if we're playing into those sort of doomsday narratives of, oh, the world is just completely gone to shit, you know, everything is bad, everything is you know, not salvageable, you know, that's not that is not true. That is not actually accurate. When we track the trajectories that humanity is on, there is so much beauty, there is so much growth and development that is happening. It's just we can't always see all of it all the time, especially if we're plugged into the news cycles, especially if we're plugged into those types of grids. And so it's really important, no matter what space you're coming from, that we don't see ourselves as victims to a larger agenda. And what happened with me with the border crossing, although I know that man did that and behaved that way towards me because of the color of my skin, I'm not going to make myself to be the victim in that situation. I'm not going to start identifying with all of these old stories about, oh, well, that stuff happens to me because of the color of my skin and because of this and because of that. I'm not going to create stories around that. I'm going to destroy and uncreate all of that. I don't need to play into that. I don't need to step into that programming around that, which is so much of what we're being fed at the moment, is to identify with being a victim. And you can do that. You can do that no matter what background you come from. You will find some way, you can find some way to identify with that. And that means that we're not in our sovereignty. We're not making choices that actually serve us. We're not able to really become creator beings. We're not able to step into our abundance. We're always going to feel as though we're fighting against something that is bigger than ourselves, rather than truly honoring the choices that we make and choosing to see our experiences as things which happen for us. 5 years ago, I would have responded to that situation very, very differently. Yes, I was angry. Yes, I was upset. I needed to take a moment to process those emotions, but ultimately it's, you know, barely 24 hours later, I feel fine. I'm like, yeah, whatever, it was his problem. It actually got, quite frankly, nothing to do with me. I was just a trigger for something that was existing within him. It's literally got nothing to do with me. And so I'm not going to make it mean something about me. As humans, we are such powerful storytellers. And so being mindful of what those stories look like that we're telling about ourselves. Right, why perpetrate someone else's ignorance? Perpetuate someone else's ignorance. Exactly. And when actually we can ask, okay, how is this asking me to show up in this situation? Where's my contribution around this? How can I turn this into a learning experience? How can I change the narrative for myself in this situation, especially when it's something that mirrors an iteration of your past. Because for me, yeah, sure, that totally does mirror things that have been unpleasant for me in my past, but I'm not going to take it on, and so often the universe will give us these opportunities to rewrite those narratives, and it's just about choosing sovereignty over slavery in those moments, choosing not to be beholden to someone else's beliefs, ideas, projections, and expectations of who we are, So I wanted to share that today. It felt important. It felt like a lot of that is coming up in the collective right now, of where we're being asked to make certain choices, where we're being asked to see, where we're still playing into narratives which no longer serve us. And it's interesting because in the last couple of days, I have had so many messages from clients, from people in general, just saying, what is going on with the energies right now? Why do I feel like I've lost my mind? Why do I feel like I'm just like floating out here in the nothingness, and sort of confused about my direction, when maybe even a week prior, if I spoke to these same people, they were really on track. And there has been this collective haze that I've noticed, which is very much sucking people in to these sort of beliefs that they're not sure what they're doing, or they're not sure what their direction is. And the sort of contrast to that is that there is a lot of people who are entering into a real liminal state, or a sort of void phase, where things are collapsing. They're experiencing a bit of a quantum crumble, or a bit of a timeline release right now, but always remembering that within those spaces, we don't want to be trying to reach for answers when answers aren't available to us yet. We want to just be sitting in that void space, honoring it, and just allowing whatever wants to come through for our soul, from our soul, to come through. And I think when we start to spin and we start to go, oh my God, what's happening? What do I do? That's when we start plugging into these collective waves. I wouldn't describe it as intense as a collective level psychic attack, but it wasn't far off it energetically. And I always notice these things when I get multiple people contacting me saying the exact same thing. It's because there's something in the collective wave that's been sent out, probably by slightly more nefarious beings, just to hijack hijack people. So just, if you feel like that resonates with you right now, just call all of you back to you. Claim your sovereignty over body, mind, and energy field. And it really is as simple as that. You might have to just check you're not plugged into anything. Just say, call all of me back to me. I like to imagine almost like pulling a plug out of a wall socket, and just making sure you're totally unplugged from that collective haze, just making sure you're grounded into the earth, and also into the stars, into your source point. And that's a really good way just to make sure that you're not drawing from those collective waves when you really don't need to be. There is so much good stuff available to us energetically right now. If we can sync up with it, if we can sync up with those highest timelines, there's really is nothing holding us back from being able to fully perceive that right now. That's also what I'm seeing really, really strongly. So yeah. So I feel a little bit of light language coming through. What a shitty experience. Glad you're okay. Yeah, it definitely was unpleasant, but again, there was so many growth points within all of that as well. So just a bit of a crown clearing that's coming through. And just making sure you're fully anchored in your body. I concur. Completely reflect, rewrite, and redirect your own energies to gain the totality of you, which is of the all. Yes. Exactly. Yeah, just a little bit of a throat clearing as well. Mukrutin tuktoi tukrantea sukrantea shi ete tutukatatai nieta tantea sukratea sa shi katea suishkotea niesa no sukotea sha rut utututoyen dushkratea no suishkondose shoiskotea sha rishantai suishkotea sa futakashai rishakontai. Seeing a lot of number twos as well. Tutututoishkodatai niesa, which always means unity, connection, coming together. Futakatai shoiskotea sha futakatai sha Descente ashui isukotaya shui, restan ayashui sukotaya shakratan dasai la sa mukotaya nisa, nukrotaya shamoi tikataya, wishantoi sukotaya sa, ishantai, shikotaya nyasa. Okay, and just asking your body just to ground all of this in the way that's best for you. Okay, thank you so much to all of you for joining this live. It was honestly hilarious how I could not record a video despite having space on my phone. So evidently this live was meant to happen. Today I've seen 12, 22 and 122. Ha, yes. Love that. Such deep synchronicities happening all around us. That was definitely one of my main things in Glastonbury as well, was the synchronicity was next level. And I would say synchronicity is something I experience quite a lot, but like this is what I mean by there is so much amazing stuff available to us right now. It's like if you're willing to shift and shift fast, things will happen so quickly. It'll just be like, okay, let go of this, now this new thing comes in, let go of that, now this new thing comes in. When we're willing to just move and not get in our own way and sort of let go of our negative egoic thoughts around things, then yeah, things are changing really fast on this planet right now. So thank you all so much for joining me, and I will be doing more YouTube lives because Instagram has changed it. So I think you have to have 1,000 followers or something before you can go live on Instagram. So I'm going to be using YouTube more. So sending you all lots of love and speak soon.